The word broken gets bandied about often by us gamers to refer to anything that is too powerful to be reasonable. Oftentimes, these are just cards that are really, really good, or elements within games that are very, very powerful to the point where why would you pick anything else? And that can break the immersion or break the balance of the game on a large level. However, there are other instances where within games, certain bugs and exploits present themselves and literally allow you to break the game, being able to cheat your way into later levels or access content that you weren't supposed to be able to do. Well, when it comes to Magic the Gathering, we don't have too many examples of that. For the most part, the cards function the way that they're supposed to function, and erratas or outright bans can help alleviate some of those challenges. But there is one example of a card that is incredibly popular in Commander because it is genuinely broken in that particular format. The card that I'm talking about is Serra Ascendant. Of course, you already knew that because you saw the title of this video. Serra Ascendant is a 1/1 lifelinker for 1. Okay, great. And it's a human monk. So, okay, that is perfectly fine on its face. However, as long as you have 30 or more life, Serra Ascendant gets +5/+5 and has flying. That is a perfectly good payoff if you're in a life gain deck in a format where your starting life total is 20. The idea is you have to have an additional 10 life points beyond your starting life points, and then you get a bonus. You get a big creature as a result. Okay, neat. This is problematic when we go to Commander, where your starting life total is 40. So as a result, when you play the Serra Ascendant as early as turn 1, it enters the battlefield as a 6/6 flying lifelinker. Now, I guarantee you that was never the intended use for this card. Now, I'm not calling for it to be banned. I want to make that abundantly clear. All I'm asking is that white players in Commander who have this in their deck be aware of how powerful this card is and be honest with yourself and your playgroup and your Rule Zero conversations. I've been a part of pods where people say, oh, my deck is a pretty casual deck. It's fairly slow. I'm doing some life gain things. Nothing too crazy. Turn 1 Serra Ascendant. That doesn't feel like a slow casual game, which is what we had discussed. So for some reason, a lot of people think this card isn't the power piece that it is. But it is, make no mistake. Now, when we're talking about Commander, incredibly powerful turn 1 plays are becoming more and more common as they print more and more fast mana and other incredibly cheap, efficient creatures. And so trying to police one and not others is kind of ridiculous. I'm also not calling for any kind of functional errata, although if this card were to be printed nowadays, it would probably say, if your life total is 10 higher than your starting life total, then you get the payoff. We see cards like Righteous Valkyrie that have similar text to that have come out in recent years. And I think that makes perfect sense. If it were to be templated like that, Serra Ascendant would require a Commander player to have 50 life instead of 30 in order to get the payoff, which is, frankly, in a lot of life gain decks, not hard to pull off anyway. There are a million cards that are broken in Commander. Have fun, get silly, but be honest with yourself about how powerful your decks are and how powerful your cards are. This should be an innocuous, small creature in white life gain decks that might be able to get a payoff later. Instead, it is an incredible monster that can take control of the board state very, very early on, making it almost impossible to attack into you or allowing you to take gigantic chunks out of your opponent while gaining significant life. If the Serra Ascendant attacks for 2 turns unchecked, you have dealt 12 damage and gained 12 life. So that's potentially a 24-point life swing in your favor. Even starting with 40 life, you can't tell me that a 24-point life swing isn't a big deal. It just is. Commander is a format where people are encouraged to play the busted nonsense. You are encouraged to play broken cards. And cards like this are part of a landscape. They are what they are. I would highly recommend, if you are running this particular card in your playgroup, during the Rule Zero conversation as you're discussing your deck's strengths, mention this. Because if this shows up on turn 1, it could change the dynamic of the game in a way that is going to influence the kind of mood and the kind of time people have within that game. Those are the kind of cards that should be disclosed. If you're running Jeweled Lotus, if you have the potential for a turn 3, turn 4 kill, you need to be open and upfront about that. Serra Ascendant it's certainly not a Prosh food chain combo, or it's not Curiosity in your Niv Mizzet deck, but all the same, it is a powerhouse that can change the dynamic and make anyone at the table who's trying to win through combat damage incredibly frustrated really, really early. Funnily enough, the downside to Serra Ascendant, though, is in those life gain decks, if you find it later in the game, if you've already had a Sulfin player just burn you out and you're down at 10 life, it's not going to help you come back because it's just a 1/1 lifelinker. So coming from behind in the late game, it does almost nothing. But if you top deck it early, it's going to be explosive and powerful. Incidentally, you can give that exact same description to pretty much all of the fast mana pieces that are in the format. A Mana Crypt coming late is still going to provide positive mana for playing it, so it's never bad per se, but it itself is not going to get you the rest of the way. Serra Ascendant was first printed in Magic 2011, the core set from July 2010. The very first Commander Precon decks were released in Commander 2011, which came out almost a year later in June of 2011. So Serra Ascendant was printed at a time prior to Commander being an official format like it is today. It was recently included in a Secret Lair Angel deck that Wizards put out called Angels. They're just like us, but cooler and with wings. It is part of that deck, so it is very clear that Wizards is aware of this card, and they will likely reprint it in future products as a way to help push them for Commander players. Because as of this recording, it is selling for well over $15. Clearly, Commander players know a good card when they see it, and this is certainly that. And it's not just good, it is broken. Thank you so much for checking out the video. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/hammox42. I look forward to seeing you out there Monday through Friday, and I hope y'all have a good one. Catch you on the next one.